Well, that's not
We've all been a little bit too much attention.
Oh, Jason doesn't like his seat.
Oh, really?
What a perfectly choreographed entrance.
Yes, that's worked so well.
Reminder that please wait and we'll get a microphone to you.
Hi. This is good to see everybody. A terrific film. It's extremely funny and affecting. And Emma and anybody else who'd like to comment, why do you think Pamela Travers, who can be so hurtful and so mean, is so much fun and so kind of irresistibly adorable?
That is the first time I've heard it called irresistibly adorable, but I'll take it. Is it not rather nice for all of us who've been so well brought up and we're all so bloody polite all the time, Americans particularly, to see someone being rude? It's bliss, isn't it? I think we act quite a lot of the time in sort of conflict with what we really feel.
That's the stupid thing to say.
Yeah? How much did we enjoy that? We love that.
So rude to celebrate rudeness.
We can carry on like this for a long, long time.
Scott, go ahead.
For Miss Thompson and Mr. Hanks, you're playing over here. You're playing characters. One's got a very high public profile, one less well known. What were the little breadcrumbs that you used to follow the trail, to get the essence of who these people were, rather than to try to do imitations, that sort of thing?
There was a bit of a vocal cadence and a rhythm that Mr. Disney had. It took a while to figure out. But a lot of the little anecdotes we found specifically from the likes of Richard Sherman, and were already in the play, in the screenplay. For example, like Walt's cough. Walt smoked 3 packs a day, and Richard Sherman, and was in the screenplay as well, is that you knew, he said, you always knew when Walt was coming to visit your office because you could hear him coughing, from down by the elevator. So you're able to put that kind of stuff into it, and it just ends up being, one of the delightful cards in the deck.
Emma, for you?
I'd like that you use breadcrumbs. Because I think it makes me think of Theseus and the Minotaur, and the fact that P.L. Travers was so fascinated with myth and was a searcher all her life. So it was very breadcrumby, my search for her. She went everywhere you can imagine. She was like going into a maze. And round some corners you'd find this terrible monster, and round another corner you'd find a sort of beaten child. So she was the most extraordinary combination of things. And I suppose that was the scary thing, because in films, I don't know whether my colleagues would agree, but we often get to play people who are emotionally or at least morally consistent in some way. And she wasn't inconsistent in any way. So you would not know what you would get from one moment to the next. So that you could have had a very close moment with her on one day. And I got this from her friends. And then the next day they might have gone to see her and she would have treated them as if... It's like that moment that Kelly created and invented with Paul Giamatti's character, where she says, you're the only American I've ever liked. And he says, oh really, how fascinating, why? Will you tell me why? She says, no. I don't want to tell you any more about that. Now you're just asking too much. Go away.
But you know what you do with breadcrumbs, don't you? You feed the birds, the birds, the birds, the birds, the birds, the birds,
On the right aisle there.
My question is for Emma. I found it a little bit funny. You won an Oscar for screenplay, and you have played a nanny. And here you are. I'm Nanny McPhee?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
That was my. I'm intrigued. Sorry. I didn't
playing a person who's helping in a screenplay about a nanny, and I'm wondering if that at all affected your approach to this film.
No. I can't resist, sorry. I tell you what is interesting. P.L. Travers likened, well, she used to talk a lot about Buffalo Bill. And while I was replaying her and discovering what she was, well, while I was researching her, I found out that she referred to Mary Poppins in very similar ways. She had understood that there was a sort of Zen mastery in the way in which she worked, but also that, and this is my theory, but I think that because women have traditionally been locked out of the superstructures or the power structures that we all live in, Buffalo Bill's a very good example, because I've always thought that Nanny McPhee was essentially a Western, only set in a domestic environment, and she felt the same way about Mary Poppins. So there's a very real connection in the sense that, you know, the outsider comes into the place where there is difficulty and solves the problem using unorthodox methods and then must leave. That's a Western. And because women don't have that kind of power, the Western form, which is a myth, an essential myth, what she would have called an essential myth, emerges in the female world in the nursery. So that's what comes to mind when I don't think I've answered your question at all. But it was the interesting thing I thought that I could tell you.
All the way over here on the left.
Hi, my question is for Colin. Your rapport with little Annie Rose Buckley is genuinely beautiful. How did you go about creating that special bond with her?
A stick. Alternated with sugar cubes, which I got from the horse trainer. No, she was just a dream, Annie, to be around. I mean, people say you shouldn't work with children or animals, but you must only work with children because you work 8 hours a day. She was a dream. She, from what I could tell, she didn't exude ambition, and sometimes kids do, of course, and which is not to say she's not ambitious, and that would be fine if she was, but she didn't exude ambition, and she didn't seem to be too fazed by any of it. She was just a really, really sweet presence to be around, and to see how beautiful and open her face was on the monitor, and just in being around her was kind of like, it was the most exquisite of canvases upon which the later life of P.L. Travers was born, as she witnessed what her father was putting himself through, and thereby putting everyone else in the family through as well. I mean, I have to accept some responsibility for the emotional inconsistency of P.L. Travers. I think that probably the apple fell a little bit close to the stump.
We'll get into as many of you as we can, as quickly as we can, in the center there.
For Ms. Thompson and Mr. Hancock and anybody else who might want to weigh in, I mean, P.L. Travers made it very clear in the film what she thought of Disney's Mary Poppins, but how do you think she would have responded to saving Mr. Banks?
Silently.
He's dead.
Too much?
Just to the edge.
You know what, I think, I've been asked this question a few times, and I reckon this is a woman who kept on saying, I don't want anything, I don't want Barbara, I don't want anything like that, I don't want anyone to know anything about me. Meanwhile, she kept everything she wrote and sent it for the archives at Bristol University. So she felt, I'm certain, that she was an important contributor to the artistic, to the culture, and wanted, I think, to have it preserved. And I think that what she would say about this is it's absolutely ridiculous film. I have no relationship whatsoever to what was happening, but it's about me. And a lot. And I thought that the clothes were really rather nice.
Over here on the left.
For Mr. Hanks and Ms. Thompson, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the challenges of playing such iconic characters research you did, talking to people that knew them, and how that helped you inform your performances?
There's a lot of anecdotal information that kept coming to us. There were people who knew Walt, and they still have access to the studio because I think they still have their cards that let them on stage. They searched us out. Richard Sherman was a never-ending, literally never-ending fountain of stories, of facts, of anecdotes, of bits and pieces of everything that had happened. And Diane Disney Miller, his daughter, gave me unlimited access to the archives and the museum in San Francisco. Made a couple of visits there, so I had a lot of video and audio that I could work with. Which the only handicap there was a lot of it is Walt Disney playing Walt Disney. But even in some of that and plenty of others, there's a notion of cadence to the man, and that true sense that he believed everything that he said about his project. So he completely embraced the possibilities of wonder in the movies that he was going to make, as well as the rides he was going to come up with, and the things that he was going to build. So I had a great roadmap in order to search it out.
The front row.
Hi, Emma and Tom, both of your characters are pretty obsessed with this book and this character. And I was wondering, in your own lives, is there something that you have just either wanted to do as an actor, or you're just obsessed with the book and the character, you love it, and hope maybe to produce it, or something like that, or just love it? Is there somebody like that?
Well, just off the top of my head, which is probably the best place to start. And for me as a child, it was always Sherlock Holmes. Because I was deeply in love. And who I wanted really to be. But that's the problem, isn't it, to be a female? That a lot of the heroic models are in fact male. So one of my first questions to everybody as I was getting older is, who's the female hero? Who is she? What does she do? What does she actually do? So anyway, yeah.
I always wanted to play Lestrade at Scotland Yard. Just because he's kind of a buffoon that gets to wear a uniform, and I thought, well, that would be fun, so maybe we got some.
Hi, Mr. Hanks, it must have occurred to you this is your second saving movie. And you're a funny guy. Did you have any thoughts on that, and will you do a third saving movie?
I like to think of it as a trilogy. There's got to be some era of history that we can explore. It seems to be moving forward. I'd like to play Saving John DeLorean. John DeLorean invented the car. Okay, never mind. I got nothing. I did my best.
In the front row on the right.
Emma, this is a movie about words, but one of my favorite things with an actor is watch them when they have a scene that doesn't have dialogue. In Love Actually, in this, you have two memorable scenes where you have no dialogue. Is that harder on you because there's no words to fall back on, or is it easier for you to sort of get those emotions across because you don't have to worry about the words?
Oh, scenes without words are bliss to do. Reacting scenes are wonderful to do. I think we'd all feel the same way about that. I mean, not because one's frightened of words or learning words or using words, of course not, but just because it's a different kind of, you're not so active somehow. Yes, it's not even that you're passive, but you're just responding, and that's the scene that you're talking about at the end. John, we didn't know how to do that quite, because it's quite she's having a huge reaction. I mean, huge, it's like an elemental reaction she's never had before in her life. So, what was interesting to me about it was the thing that made it work was the clips from Mary Poppins. That's what did it. And so that's what I was responding to.
You know what's fascinating about that, though? Because I remember that day, obviously, very clearly, in the Chinese theater, and we were talking about it and how this would progress in a number of cameras, and you told me, I'm not sure where the bridge will be built, but once I know, I can cross it again and again. And that was just fascinating, because I'm not an actor, but to witness that in terms of, I'm not sure where that's going to be or how it's going to happen, but once I know how the bricks lay and how we cross the river, I can go there again and again, and she did, which was amazing.
Forgotten that.
Yeah.
Forgotten that last
Yeah.
time. Interesting, gosh.
In the back.
I have a question for Tom Hanks. You have two grandchildren right here.
Oh, there, yes, yes.
And you have two grandchildren.
Yes.
And that is the Mr. Banks side of you that we don't know. So, do you take them to Disneyland, for example? What is like to be Tom Hanks as a grandfather?
We did go, I have taken them to Disneyland on the day that we shot in Disneyland. They came, and an interesting thing happens as a grandparent. You see no reason whatsoever that your granddaughter shouldn't be delighted to take a ride on the Winnie the Pooh adventure. It's Winnie the Pooh, it's fun, it's Pooh Bear, it's Kangaroo and Owl, it's Christopher Robin. It's going to be a blast. She's going to remember this the rest of her life, her ride on Winnie the Pooh's Great Adventure. My granddaughter was terrified by the noise, the big spinning bears. She'll now be haunted for the rest of her days by this first image of Winnie the Pooh in a loud, short, herky-jerky ride that her grandfather forced her to do on the day he played Walt Disney in Disneyland. That is just a sample of the fantastic job I do as a grandfather. Thank you.
The front row.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate all of you. The film is, paraphrasing Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way. Now, along the same Disneyland vein, John Lee, Allison, for only the third time in history, a film has been shot partially in Disneyland. What kind of challenges did that face? And how do the rest of you feel about the opportunity to do something as iconic as that is rarely done, and then also shutting down with Chinese and part of Hollywood Boulevard for another major sequence?
We were very prepared for Disneyland, kind of military precision. They were very helpful down there. We knew when we could come in before it opened, and we knew at 9:17 we needed to be on Main Street and here by there. And we carefully went down there and scouted it many, many times with lenses, because if you would, pan this far over here, it would be something from 1981, pan to the left, and it's 1969. So trying to solve those problems without spending money. And being there on Main Street before the park opened, and the sun is just coming up and everybody's moving stuff around. And I remember a moment there where you're so worried and prepared for the day, and you've got that ahead of you. We're going to do it. We're going to get everything done. But then there was that moment with the sun coming up. I thought, man, this is cool. I got a great job. And then I looked over, and there was Tom sitting there, and I go, this is Walt Disney. It's all too great. So it was fantastic.
The front row here in the center.
Hello. So, my question is, obviously, Mary Poppins meant a lot to Walt Disney. I'm curious to know, for everyone on the panel, what did Mary Poppins need to do before making this film?
Jason Schwartzman.
Well, it meant a lot to me, this movie, growing up. I saw it a lot of times, and in fact, I knew most all the songs from the movie. In fact, that's what I remember the most, I think. It's funny just how much, when you're little, movie and things can affect you. And when I got the part of the movie and I started looking through archives and photos, and you'd see all these behind the scenes snapshots of the movie being made, and it was only then that it occurred to me that it was shot in Burbank, because I experienced it as a young person thinking it was in England, and it was only recently that it that I realized that it was all made up. That's how deep into my body it had gone, and how much I believed that it was all real. And in many ways, like, I wish I hadn't ever seen those photos. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to see Jaws, how, you know, Jaws is like, there's photos of guys smoking cigarettes by Jaws. I wish I'd never seen those photos. And I wish I had never seen, you know, Cherry Tree Lane on Burbank Boulevard. Because it's deep in my soul. It means a lot to me, this movie. I love it very much.
We talked last night about this because I thought I had seen Mary Poppins. I knew all the songs, I knew the characters, I had absorbed it without ever having seen it. I didn't realize that till I went to your house and watched it, and I realized there were so many scenes and complicated and dark shadings and directions that I had never associated with that film. It's a very, the film itself is so much odder than we remember, and so much more complicated, let alone the story of the film and, you know, the context of it. So it was something for me. We talked about this. All these Disney films, they feel like they're in your DNA. Growing up, these songs, the Sherman Brothers songs especially, you just feel they just came from heaven fully formed. It's so interesting to see that people, we went to the archives and saw drafts with different lyrics and different script pages, and it's so odd to think that this ever could have been any different. And that was so interesting about making this movie, seeing all the drafts, let alone the scenes that I had never even known were there.
In the front row on the left here.
For Tom, here.
Sorry.
Yeah. What have you learned about Walt Disney after doing the movie that you didn't know before, and how challenging was for you to have to look and sound like him?
We had the most discussed, photographed, analyzed, diagrammed, tested mustache on the planet. I mean, I think actually the documents went to the United States government to discuss the angle of the shave, how much mustache was going to be there. I don't look too much like him, but there's a line, there's an angular figure you can get from by way of the way the boxiness of the suits. And the playing around with various pieces of hair in order to get there. You know, I had a little bit of luck in that Walt Disney at this time in his life is very much already Walt Disney. He is the accomplished artist, industrialist that he was. The nature of the surprises that came down the fact was that really coming from Diane about how much of just a regular dad this guy was. I mean, Disneyland itself came about because he used to spend every Saturday with his two daughters. And after a while, here in LA, he ran out of places that he could take his two daughters. There was a pony rides over where the Beverly Center is now, and there was the merry-go-round in Griffith Park. But after that, that was it. And he was sitting eating peanuts on a park bench in Griffith Park, and the girls were on the merry-go-round. I said, yeah, there really should be a place dads can take their daughters on a Saturday in LA. And from that, Disneyland was born. So that connection that he had through very tight family, his brother Roy, his mom and dad who were a part of his life as soon as he had money, that was it. And also the fact that he was sadly a victim of the times. He smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day, and he died of lung cancer. That's just one of the grim realities of that's the way the world operated back then.
Sir.
Mr. Hans, as a storyteller that you are, also a director and producer, how do you relate with the conflict of Mr. Disney that wants to tell this marvelous story that maybe he has in his mind and the songs, and he has to deal every day with the author? How do you relate with the struggle of creating something and in the day by day as a filmmaker?
Well, everybody here is more or less some version of a person who's trying to see a story brought to its, something that starts in your head and you see possibilities for it. And it's just one damn thing after another. I mean, it seems like you're always coming across somebody like, this hell in a gas bag right here that just says no, 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 it's not going to happen. And Walt Disney, at this point, was pretty much used to getting his way because everybody loved him, and he's the guy who invented Mickey Mouse. Listen, in the creative process, which is really what this movie is about, you come to loggerheads, and you just have to just keep the process moving forward, even if that requires jumping on a plane and flying to London and knocking on Helena Gasbag's door. And it's just what the creative process requires sometimes. It's a good thing it's fun, otherwise, you know, it'd be too much work.
Hi, my question is for, sorry.
Way in the back.
For Kelly. Yes, Kelly, what a great script you wrote. I really loved it. And my question for you is, did you find any sort of irony in being the writer on a film about the writer? And did you find that you had to make some sacrifices along the way that you didn't want to make? And did you ever feel kind of like, you know, P.L. Travers at any point? And did any... That's my question.
Actually, weirdly, no. I've been asked this question a lot, and this particular process was kind of beautiful from day one, really. Unlike what Tom was just saying, nobody said no. Everybody said yes all the way through, including all of these amazing people sitting at this table, which sort of still blows my mind. So no, it was a great process, and I did think, you know, at one point Alison and I did think that Disney would probably give us a cease and desist order and not make the movie, but in fact they embraced us with open arms, and I don't think John Lee and I ever felt the hand of the studio on our shoulder. They really trusted us to go ahead and make it the way that we wanted to make it, so no, we didn't make any compromises, and I don't feel like P.L. Travers.
But no lifetime pass with a theme park either.
No.
Very stingy.
That's going to get to sit next to Colin Farrell.
All the way on the right side there.
Amazing film, brilliant characters, and an interesting structure, which only seems simple. And my question is to the director. Was it difficult to combine these episodes of LA, London, and these flashbacks, which are like a film in film? And how challenging was it for you?
Kelly's script laid it out kind of pretty much like it is in the movie. And I thought it worked very well on the page, so you want to make sure that you give your best effort to accomplish it on the screen. I think the most difficult part for me was just wrapping my brain around the idea that it's not just 1961 Los Angeles and 1906 Australia, but that these two time frames start to fold over each other at some point, and even to the point where Richard and Robert Sherman's lyrics are ending up in her memories and her father's now, which makes her not an incredibly reliable narrator of these, which is why they're stylized to a point, like childhood memories are. So I think that was the difficult thing to think about. But all of us talked about it, and Kelly and I, in prep, spent a lot of time talking about the way one scene would influence the next, and how this would hopefully, brick after brick, add up to 1 + 1 = 3.
All the way over here on the left.
This is for